Um, but thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to keep my camera off for now just because I don't want my internet to do anything crazy with us. But my name's Jess. I'm with Blue Ridge Women in Agriculture. We are a women-led nonprofit based in Western North Carolina that works to create an equitable local food system. And as you all know, farm accounting is really complicated. Keeping up with individual purchases can be really overwhelming, and just finding the time for bookkeeping is hard, especially this time of year. I'm real in the weeds. I know y'all are too. But in the long term, it can save us time and money when it's done well. So it is really important. So thanks for joining us today. We've got some really great speakers. Micah from Ambrook. Ambrook is a farm accounting management software, and they're doing really great work to support farmers. So super excited to hear from them. And then Shiloh from Tumbling Shoals Farm. They're an organic farm in Wilkes County, and they manage a large number of market channels and customers. And Shiloh's honestly one of the most organized people I know. So I'm excited to hear from her as well today. So if y'all don't mind just keeping yourself muted during the presentations, that would be great. Feel free to add questions to the chat and I'll just pop in and shout them out. And we'll also have some time for questions at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and make you the host, Micah, so you can share your screen.
Sounds
And
good.
we can go ahead and get started.
All right. Perfect.
Great, thank you.
See it. Awesome. 1 second. I'll get us all started. Hi, everyone. My name is Micah. Thank you so much, Jess, for the introduction, as well as for creating this space for all of us to tackle a tricky and complex problem that must be done, which is farm bookkeeping, and specifically enterprise level bookkeeping. Like Jess said, I do want to emphasize, I want this to be as much of a conversation as you want it to be. I want to make sure that we get all of your questions answered. I think that's the best use of all of our time. So feel free to, not even wait for the section with questions at the end, the Q&A section. Go ahead and pop your questions in the chat. I only have one screen in front of me, so just if you don't mind flagging those when they come in, that would be great. And I think talking about topics while we're talking about them and answering those questions is going to be the best way to spend our time. Yeah, so also feel free to unmute yourself and verbally ask me a question as well. I love to meet all of you. So I'm going to kind of dig into the agenda for today. And then we're going to move into some best practices for enterprise accounting. Now, this is platform agnostic, meaning regardless of whether you don't have a bookkeeping software, or if you use Excel, or if you use QuickBooks, or if you use Ambrook, all of these kind of stick around as the important tactics to kind of know to be able to do enterprise level bookkeeping. And I'll talk a bit more about that. Then we'll actually move into an Ambrook software demo. These best practices that I'm going to talk about, we specifically built our software with those best practices in mind. So I'll kind of show you how Ambrook makes it easier. And then if we have time left over, we'll talk through some of your questions. So without further ado, again, my name is Micah. I'm on the operations team at Ambrook. And the best part of my job over the past year plus has been visiting farms and ranches to really understand their challenges with keeping clean and useful books. I've had the joy of visiting folks in more than 15 states. I think it's something like 17 or 18 at this point. I've visited a lot of different operations, and a common thread between all of them is that managing finances is hard, especially in agriculture. Every operation is very different. I have actually personally onboarded and I've advised our entire customer base to date. So I've kind of I can't say I've seen it all because I don't think that's possible in ag, but I've gotten to this point so far. And prior to this, I have had a career in building and software for food supply chain industries. So that includes grocery stores prior to this and grocery distribution. And then before that, trucking owner operators. So throughout my career thus far, I've worked with small, medium-sized businesses who are all trying to do this similar thing and been building software for them. A little bit about Ambrook. So Ambrook actually started out as a funding library. And this is actually something you can still find online today. And I highly recommend for all of you, if you take one or two things out of this chat, to take a look at our funding library. It's a totally free resource that anybody can peruse, and it's something that we keep up to date every single week. Actually, Landon, my colleague who is on the call, keeps it up to date, and it has grants, loans, cost shares, all sorts of great opportunities for agriculture, for farms and agribusiness in general to be able to tap into. And it kind of shows you what the application process is like. It will give you some insight into who to contact if you need more questions. And so that's a really great resource. And that's where Ambrook started out, because we believed, our founders believed, that the biggest problem that was facing farms and ranches was access to capital. And it's not to say that isn't the biggest problem. It's certainly one that a lot of people are grappling with day to day, but we actually worked with several hundreds, maybe actually several thousands of farms to help them apply to CFAP loans during COVID, and found that a lot of folks couldn't pull a profit and loss, a balance sheet, didn't have their books enough in order to be able to qualify for a lot of these opportunities. So that's kind of where today's version of Ambrook came into play. We are a full-fledged farm accounting software, ag specific, and there's a couple ways in which we are ag specific that I'll cover, because we strongly believe that the key to solving all of these farm problems, access to capital, so there's certain operational and production problems that we cannot solve, but having clean books opens up a lot of opportunities. I actually saw a chat pop up. Oh, thank you, Jess, for sharing that. Please peruse that and give us any feedback on that if we're missing any programs that you like. So let's start with the basics. Why do record keeping at all? I kind of hinted at this just previously, but the maybe number one reason and the most obvious reason is for your taxes. The IRS expects you to file the taxes every single year, whether you like it or not. And by keeping good records, not only can you protect yourself in the case of an audit, but keeping good records also helps you minimize the tax burden that you have to pay. And so by being detailed, by being, on top of your books, you're able to actually hand over information to a CPA or whoever files your taxes. Maybe it's your partner, maybe it's somebody on your farm, to be able to minimize your tax liability. Saw another chat come in from Brittany. Is Ambrook still well suited for enterprises that are only part farming and part something else? Agritourism, event venue, etc. Excellent question. Yes, it is well suited for pretty much any mix and match combo of enterprises. So we do have, almost all of our farms have multiple enterprises. We have at least, I would say, a third of our farms have a farming enterprise or like a livestock enterprise, and also some sort of agritourism, value-added, market-related enterprise as well that they track. So that's a great question, and I'll go into what that looks like in a little more. So the second piece of this, why do any record keeping at all, is to go above and beyond just filing your taxes at the end of each year, right? It's to know and grow your business. In other words, that's as simple as knowing how much money you're making and spending, record keeping to be submitted to even apply or qualify. And on the other hand, they also require record keeping to maintain that grant or loan and to report back on it. So all of this comes together to kind of unlock a lot of opportunities for your business. So that brings me to the concept enterprise accounting. The idea is that you can get a lot more value from your books, which you have to do anyways for your tax. Okay, back to it. So at the end of the day, what enterprise accounting means is rather than just knowing, here's the total amount of money I made and here's the total amount of money I spent for my business, it's segmenting that into your sub businesses and to be able to see where you're making and losing money. So what is the payoff here? What is the point? It's to be able to get a better insight into your business, right? And so that can come in a couple of forms. Ambrook, we do provide business analytics that you can dig into at the enterprise level. But very simply, this is something that's, across whether you're using QuickBooks or Excel, something that a lot of people want to be able to see is this concept of an enterprise P&L. So we will dig into a version, like an example version of this a little bit later, but as you can see in this very simplified screenshot, and I do want to emphasize that this is super, super simplified, you are able to not only see your net income and your gross profit for your total business in column B, but you can see the difference between what is actually carrying the profit in your business versus what is maybe more expensive for your business to maintain. So in this example, cattle is highly profitable, and the corn and vegetables enterprise is less so. Yes, Wilbert, no problem. We will make sure to record this and send that recording to you. Okay. So now we're going to jump into the meat of this, which are the principles of a good enterprise bookkeeping practice. Again, this can be maintained literally anywhere. You could do it on spreadsheets. You could do it on paper. Technically, it'll be a little bit painful, but it's something that is really just platform agnostic. The first one is very simple, but something that we've found a lot of people don't have, and that is creating a chart of accounts that is in your own words. We found that this is important for a couple reasons. The first one is that when your chart of accounts is understandable by you, and what I mean by that is, for example, you can, if you are tracking your repairs and maintenance, and if you really want to know the difference between your repairs and maintenance for your tractor and for your truck, literally naming it repairs and maintenance dash tractor or repairs and maintenance dash truck. It's as simple as that, right? It's like something that you understand that is really relevant to you. And it's as granular as you want it to be. The beauty of having the chart of accounts in your own words is that A, you will dread bookkeeping less if you know what you're supposed to tag things as. And B, it will also help you reduce errors. So when you are tagging things and you know what each account is for, you will feel confident about tagging that. Your team members, maybe your partner, whoever is helping you on the farm with bookkeeping, will also feel confident about tagging that. And it's not all just living in your head, right? An example we like to share of this is one of our earliest customers, their accountant made them an account called off-road fuel. Now, off-road fuel is something where if you track it, you can actually get a tax credit on it at the end of the year. However, the client didn't know that and didn't care to know that really. And so off-road fuel meant nothing to them. And they instead would categorize their purchases with something else because they were looking for dyed fuel, because in their head, that's what off-road fuel was. And so what this led to was, first of all, a lot of messiness at the end of the year that the client had to go back and recategorize. And then also, they possibly missed out on some portion of the tax break. And so if they had just named it dyed fuel, off-road fuel, dyed fuel from the beginning, the accountant's smart, they got this. It's their job to review it at the end of the year. Ultimately, you are the one who are keeping your own books. So it is really, really important for you to have your chart of accounts set up in a way that makes sense to you. Cool. Secondly, the second principle is to associate an expense with an enterprise if and only if that expense would go away if you stopped the enterprise. So I'm going to go through a few examples here. The first one maybe is one of the more obvious ones. Chicken feed as a category, right? As an expense category, which might be cost of goods sold. Chicken feed, you wouldn't need that anymore if you stopped raising chickens. So what I mean by that is every time you purchase chicken feed, the enterprise that you would allocate it to would be your chickens enterprise. The second example here is maybe a little bit less obvious. So we always encourage our customers to have an overhead enterprise to allocate expenses against that kind of don't fit anywhere else. And by that, I mean, a great example is a mortgage payment or a rent payment. Everybody has a mortgage payment or a rent payment, or somehow, or maybe you own your land outright, and that's awesome. But if just because you stop raising chickens or just because you stop growing tomatoes, doesn't mean that you would stop paying your mortgage, right? And so in these cases, we highly recommend that you have an overhead allocation. Other examples of this might be like bookkeeping software or other things like that. And finally, a third example, which might be a little bit more tricky, is pastureland rent cattle. So sounds a little bit similar to that mortgage payment / rent example, except in this case, if you are leasing land specifically to run cattle on, you'd probably stop leasing that land if you stopped your cattle enterprise, your stockers enterprise, whatever it might be. Therefore, that's how you know to allocate that expense against your cattle enterprise. So using this framework when you're thinking about categorizing your income and expense based on enterprises, is a really clear way, is the smartest and easiest way to be able to do enterprise accounting. Third, and this one breaks my heart because we all love to throw our transactions into an other category, but I highly recommend using those other expenses or other income categories sparingly. Even if your expense, for example, like accountant's fees, is infrequent, maybe it happens once a year, you probably want a category for it, because if you just throw that in other, looking back on your books, it's really hard to tell what it was for, right? And the way I like to put it is that every time you use the other categories, sure, it's convenient, but you actually miss out on an opportunity to learn something about your business. And so whatever you can do to add new chart of accounts, make sure you set yourself up for success from the beginning, I highly recommend. It's something that we actually focus on at Ambrook to make sure people feel really good about their chart of accounts during their onboarding process. And we make it really easy to add charts of accounts along the way. And so, developing a muscle, whether or not you're on Ambrook, developing a muscle to, if you're not categorizing it now, saving it for later, attach any notes or receipts that you might need, that's super important. This next one, very relevant to receipts. I have heard from many customers about their dreaded shoebox or their mysterious truck cup holder where receipts go to die. We highly recommend that you record the transaction the moment it occurs, or as soon as possible, whether that might be, on a notes app on your phone or on a Google Sheet app or on Ambrook, we have a mobile app, whatever that might look like. Being able to write down the context around the transaction as close to when it happens as possible is really important, because you all know what it's like. You've all probably seen like check number 12345 like on your ledger or something and been like, what was that for? I have no idea. So adding that context in early and often is really important. And save your receipts. We'll talk about receipt management in a bit. This one's my favorite. Principle number 5 is considering internal transfers. So internal transfers are a way to represent value that is exchanged between enterprises in your business. And the reason this is important is because it's very easy to realize that your business is subsidizing itself in certain ways. And now a really clear example of this is written right here, where if you've got livestock, whatever that livestock might be, and you also grow crops on the side to feed them. And this could apply, if you've got chickens and you grow corn for chicken feed, or if you have produce, right, and you are maybe using something like compost or fertilizer and you're creating that yourself. The profitability of the livestock is going to actually be inflated unless you consider the cost to grow those crops to feed them, right? So this is really key. Like the food that you're growing and giving to your animals is not free. It actually costs something, and you could technically sell it on the market for market price. And therefore there's an opportunity cost you need to account for. So this concept of an internal transfer, which is value going from one enterprise to another, is a really good way to recognize that value and that expense internally, whether or not cash changes hands, right? And so you see this picture up in the corner here. This is a screenshot from inside the Ambrook app. We actually treat internal transfers as a first-class concept where you're able to log a credit to your hay enterprise. So your hay enterprise is earning $1,000 in this example that is in the photo right here. And your cattle enterprise is paying $1,000 for that hay. And therefore, no money actually changes hands. So the money inflow and outflow of your business stays the same, and a lot of your reports aren't affected. However, you'll be able to see that you paid $1,000 market value for cattle, and your hay earned money, so that you can actually see at the end of the day, is my hay profitable, or when I do this, or should I actually sell on the market next year? So it helps you make some of those more complex decisions, and we highly recommend that folks do this on a monthly basis per se. All right, we got another question from Brittany. Maybe too granular, but what if your overall enterprise has multiple legal entities, for example, both a for-profit and a nonprofit component? what perfect timing here, because number 6 is keep entities separate. We do have a way to deal with this in Ambrook that I can share, but you are correct, Brittany, in that this is an important thing to know. So I'll make 2 points here. The first one is this one, where you want to, wherever possible, to protect yourself legally and each of your entities legally, to keep separate bank accounts, separate movements of money and inflows and outflows of money. And when, if and when those entities loan money within each other, that you just document those transactions rigorously. So I am not a CPA. I am not a lawyer. I would always lean on a financial professional to tell you what's right and wrong. But general practice is to keep your entities separate in the way that they transact money or pull money in between them. However, there are a lot of cases in which across multiple entities, there might be a single enterprise that kind of crosses across them. So an example of that might be, we have a customer that has a feedlot and then like a feedlot entity and a farm entity. And across both of those are the expenses and income for their stalker business. And so Ambrook's flexibility with tags allows you to track, my stalker enterprise, even though it goes across multiple business entities, multiple legal entities. How is it doing as a whole? Because, even though this is the legal separation is required and important, something that's important to note also is that, you're the owner of both of these legal entities. So understanding whether you're making money across and within them is also very important. I think the trickiest thing and the thing that I want you all to take away from this is that an enterprise doesn't necessarily have to sit within a single entity. It could sit across multiple entities, depending on how those entities have a relationship with each other. And so having a way to deal with keeping entities separate from a financial flow standpoint, but also doing your enterprise analysis and bookkeeping across them where necessary is important. All right, and so let's go back to this enterprise P&L that I kind of mentioned earlier. So just switch tabs. This here, again, this is a very oversimplified version of a P&L. I actually have a lot of columns hidden here. We got salaries and wages, operating expenses, G&A, but it's still oversimplified, and this is obviously not any customer's data. This is all fake data. And normally, if you're keeping your normal year-to-year books, you would only have column B, this total. What enterprise accounting does for you is you're actually able to separate out within your total the different enterprises, as well as those overhead costs that cannot be allocated to any particular enterprise. So as you can see, the overheads enterprise only has expenses, so it's going to be at a loss, but you're actually able to see, if I removed cattle from the equation entirely, I would have this much less gross profit and this much less gross margin. And it kind of allows you to get more information to make these business decisions. And look, I'm not fooling anyone by saying that like financial data is the only data you will use to make a decision, right? Like you might have other reasons for keeping up certain enterprises, and that's totally fine. But knowing whether you're making or losing money within each of those is a really key point to pay attention to, so that you're able to at least make an informed decision. So before I kind of hop into the next section, I do want to emphasize why enterprise accounting is hard to do. Why doesn't everyone just do it if it's so valuable, right? And there's a few reasons. The first one is that it does take leaning into record keeping a little bit, right? And current tools, they don't do a great job of this on the enterprise accounting front, which is disappointing. And that's one of the reasons why our team over here is working really hard to make Ambrook what it is. So on QuickBooks, they do have a concept called called classes for enterprises, but it's pretty finicky to set up and maintain. We found that it's pretty expensive to set up too, because you usually need to bring in somebody who is like an expert on QuickBooks, is like QuickBooks certified. And we, frankly, our team doesn't think that's necessarily right? You should be able to, your software should be intuitive. And that's one of the principles that we kind of abide by. We've also talked to quite a few farmers, and several of them came to us from QuickBooks and they found that they don't get the reports and the analytics that they need, even once they have set up enterprises in a way that answers questions about their business they also find that their chart of accounts gets really like tangled and sprawling when they have classes set up. And then on the Excel side, I love Excel personally. I am a Excel user in my day to day. The problem with Excel is that it's a lot of manual entry work, and I'm sure several of you are coming from an Excel background or Excel bookkeeping background. And the reality is, as your business grows, it doesn't scale with it. Whether you hit a maximum number of rows or you start to manually write in all of the different categories for your expenses, like it's just not scalable, easy to make mistakes, easy to misspell things, etc. So we've tried to make it easier with Ambrook, and that's not only by building a product around some of the principles that I just shared with you, which I'm excited to give you a quick demo of, but it's also by really putting a lot of care into the way that we work with and set up our customers for success. We take it really seriously. We know that your jobs are way harder than our jobs. And so we really lean into not only improving the software really continuously, and again, I'll show you what that looks like, but also just being really thoughtful about how we onboard you, and make sure that you know what questions you want Ambrook to answer for you, making sure that you feel really set up for success. And if you don't see something that you like, or if you find a bug in our software, like we're right there to help you out. And so I actually want to kind of give you a quick demo. But before that, I'm hoping that I can have Shiloh speak for a minute or two, about her experience with Ambrook. Shiloh, I'll let you introduce yourself, and let me know if you need me to unshare my screen or anything.
No, that's fine. That's me. uh, yeah, we onboarded in January, at least that's what it says there. My memory is sometime in the winter. I was only using QuickBooks Online for a year prior to that. So the timing was really good. The thing that I experienced and loved most about Ambrook is the customer service is ridiculously good. Like I have a question or a problem and it's like answered within 5 minutes, and then like if it's a thing in the software, they've got it fixed by the end of the day. I mean, that is something that I didn't get with QuickBooks. And so when I had questions in QuickBooks, they just went unanswered. I am not using we're kind of one enterprise. I mean, we grow a lot of different vegetables, but we're just vegetables. And so I'm not really using the enterprise accounting to its fullest extent. That could change at some point. You never know. We talk about value added a lot, but we haven't made the leap. I don't know. Do you have specific questions besides that
Yeah, if anybody has
experience?
questions for Shiloh, feel free. But thank you. I really appreciate. I mean, it's myself or a couple of my colleagues who are on the other end of the line, and like I'm glad to hear that the care comes across. Like that's definitely something that we take really seriously. Yeah, thank you so much for popping in, Shiloh. I really appreciate your time, and it's been great being partnered with you.
Shiloh, I do have a quick question for you. We use
Sure.
QuickBooks and I'm considering transitioning away, but I'm worried because the one like small business accountant that we've used really pushes QuickBooks. Did you have trouble like switching accountants or doing tax filing when you made that transition?
Jason, my husband, does the taxes, and we haven't filed taxes since we've been because he had already done the taxes through using the QuickBooks. But if he runs into issues again, like the team at Ambrook is like they'll just help him through it. And already he was trying to we were getting a loan and he was trying to put together a P&L, and the team at Ambrook just like talked to him and kind of just did it, kind of just did it really. Like what he needed in that P&L, and yeah. So I mean, that solves that for me. Like, I'm not worried about him doing taxes and not understanding. I do all the day-to-day accounting, and then he does the taxes, which can sometimes be a problem because we don't look at the world the same way. But yeah, I'm not worried about it because of that customer service factor or aspect. Yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank
but we
you.
haven't had the experience yet. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And Brittany, I can speak a little bit more to like what we have in the way of taxes. First of all of our data is super exportable. So I would say almost all of our customers to date have come off of QuickBooks. I think one came off of Xero. We had a handful on spreadsheets, but vast majority QuickBooks. And one process that we went through rigorously at the beginning was basically making sure the data you can export from Ambrook can be exported in a format that can literally just be uploaded into QuickBooks. Like, that's something that's really important to us. I would also say that we have had a lot of accountants come into Ambrook too. And you know, the thing about Ambrook is that it is fully collaborative, so you can add other users and give them different permissions. And so we do have several customers where their accountant is literally just another user in Ambrook and can, you know, download whatever data they want, or make changes directly in the software if you're comfortable with that. And then the final thing that I would add is that one of the things that makes Ambrook Farm specific is actually when we help you set up your chart of accounts, we take care of tying back the every single category to a Schedule F category. So that designation is done from the beginning, which saves a ton of accountants headache. We got a lot of feedback from CPAs early on who are filing taxes that they had a lot of trouble sorting through the different expenses and figuring out what went to what. Even if they're already categorized, and figure out, you know, was this a supply? Does this go into box 32 other, you know? And so that's something we actually take care of off the bat. So let me show you what Ambrook looks like. Let me know if y'all can't see Ambrook right now. I'm pretty sure I'm still sharing. So this here is the Ambrook ledger. And so just a quick overview in case, you know, some of you are coming off of QuickBooks, maybe some of you are coming off of Excel or nothing at all. And so this here is a general ledger, and it might look familiar somewhat if you are in QuickBooks. This, you can think of every single line in this ledger as like an atom, like a small molecule that all come together. Each molecule comes together to make up the financial picture of your business. So this ledger includes everything from, you know, your connected accounts. So, you know, you might connect a credit union, a checking account, a savings account. You might connect a business credit card, or you might connect your line of credit even. You might also log cash, because that's a reality of this industry. That's not going to go away anytime soon. So all of this comes together to make up your ledger. And as you can see, there's like the information that comes from the bank, there's the amount, and then there's these columns here, which represent Ambrook tags. And so I want to really quickly show you when I click to open up the tagger for this Berry Hill drip transaction, you can actually see this is your chart of accounts here, and that's something that, you know, our team helps you set up. Next to every single chart of account, we show you in this little eye icon exactly where it ties back in terms of Schedule F. And so when you download Ambrook data, you can actually, there's actually a whole column that shows you, you know, what Schedule F box it goes into. And so it's super easy to submit a Schedule F at the end of the year. And so we did that on purpose because we heard so many people were just chasing down information related to their Schedule F. So that's something to consider when it comes to tax time. We had, you know, we were still early on, early this year, but we had more than a handful of our customers filed their 2022 taxes through Ambrook, and they said what would have been, you know, a multi-week nightmare was just a few hours of sitting down and kind of backfilling their tags, and that's because they weren't, you know, up to date on all of their bookkeeping too.
Do you have most people that switch over, do they switch over in January like Shiloh did? Or do you have people?
Yeah, good question. So we are onboarding all times of the year. I mean, most naturally, I think there's the most amount of like interest and volume when things are quiet, right? And you actually have time to breathe. And we totally understand that. It depends on the operation. But I just brought on a pretty mid-sized produce operation. I just finished training them today, actually. And they were brought on a couple weeks ago for the first time. So, you know, we try to make it a pretty like white glove experience to onboard, and it really just depends on you. Do you have the brain space for it? There are lots of features on this ledger that I can show you, such as automations. There's bulk tagging. For example, you can look up Berry Hill drip. And then, you know, anything that's Berry Hill drip you can check multiple of them and tag them all at the same time. You can create a automation that will, every time this description comes in, you'll see it'll tag it for you. So there are a lot of like hacks that kind of make it easier to backfill. And there were just some people where QuickBooks wasn't working for them at all, and they're like, I need to get my books in order because the stuff that I have in QuickBooks right now is garbage. And so, you know, wanted to use Ambrook as an opportunity to do that. Does that answer your question, Brittany? Is there anything else that I can answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So back to enterprise accounting. So what makes Ambrook really special is that not only do we have this category column, right, which is what is the expense that this was for? Was it equipment? Was it animal rent? Was it building maintenance? Like, what did you spend this money on, and what did you make this money on? But there's also this concept of an enterprise, which we hold as like a first-class standard in Ambrook. Like every single expense and income transaction has an associated enterprise with it, whether that's like overhead, you know, throw it into the overhead bucket, or if it's apples or carrots. Depends on, again, it's totally up to you how granular you get. Shiloh chooses to do all just produce as her single enterprise. You know, if it'd be a lot of work, I think, if she wanted to separate it out from like a vegetables perspective. But what this allows is, you know, you can not only tag your fertilizer as fertilizer, but you could say, what was this fertilizer used for? And, you know, you can have the enterprises are super flexible. You could have it be one season of corn. We know that a lot of like the folks on our platform that are have a row crop operation, it matters to them to know, was this my 2022 season or my 2023 season? Because, you know, it leaks over on either side of the calendar year. So you have any amount of flexibility in terms of enterprises. If it's a expense that was split across, let's say, you know, apples and carrots, it was 50-50. You have the ability to really easily and quickly kind of fix those splits. And then, of course, from a bookkeeping standpoint, we also allow you to tag what entity, business entity. This is optional. You can hide it from your screen entirely if this doesn't apply to you. And then there's also something called funding tags. This is brought in from, we just believe that access to funding is really important. And so you can actually tag your books, you can tag your expenses and your income and track them against a grant or loan or cost share. And I've met a lot of people, and I continue to meet a lot of people who are filing their taxes separately from doing their business analytics and budgeting, separately from tracking for their funding, so they could get paid back on, you know, their, for example, they could get reimbursed for a particular program they're a part of. Why not do it all in one place? And that's kind of the underlying principle of Ambrook. Casey had a question. Can you talk about farm value added enterprises that are Schedule C, not Schedule F? Great question, Casey. So let me show you something. If I go into settings, oops, I screwed up something. Excuse me. I think I just got kicked out. Give me 1 second. So we actually have the ability to, similar to the Schedule F, you are able to attach the every single expense and income category to a Schedule C as well. So there, that information box that I just popped up for you, that actually is just Schedule F. But when you create a category and a column within Ambrook, you are able to say, this is the Schedule C box. If applicable, this is the Schedule F box, and you can kind of like connect it underneath a roll-up category. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Casey? And so in that case, you can run your farm value-added business in tandem with your Schedule F. Cool. All right, I think my Wi-Fi just shorted out. So give me a second. One thing that I actually would love to show you all that I didn't get a chance to do is the mobile app. How many of you, if any of you, kind of have a receipt tracking problem? Did that kind of resonate with anyone? You can, put an emoji or write in the chat or something like that. Yeah, Brittany, I see you. So we actually have a mobile app that we know and love, and it has all the same, basically all the same functionality as the web app, except for one thing, which is amazing, and I'll show you guys. It actually allows you to take a picture of the receipt. I'm going to find a transaction here. There we go. So I've got the web and mobile app here. Give me 1 second to close out my. I have to unblur my background, so you'll have to excuse me. There we go. So this is our mobile app here, and you're actually able to click into a transaction. So, and then you can use this camera or upload attachment section. And if you just take pictures of your receipts on your phone, you can upload them and attach them directly to the transaction. You can also take a picture right then and there of the receipt, and you can make sure that it gets attached to that transaction forever. And kind of the beauty of that is, you just never have to lose the receipt again. It doesn't have to, die in your car cup holder or anything. So I want to emphasize that, like, one of the things, another principle that we abide by at Ambrook is this idea of, you guys have jobs that do not have to do with computers a lot of the time. And so, like, how do we make it super, super easy for you to do your job do the bookkeeping, the less fun stuff while you're out on the field? So back to the web app. So a couple other things I want to highlight before I kind of close out for questions include this invoices and bills tab in the application. So you're actually able to create and pay your bills directly through Ambrook. And so, you can mail a check, you can basically create the bill, you can tag it. Here, I'll show you. This is on the invoices side, but it looks very similar on the bills. You can create your bill, you can actually upload it and scan the file, and it will read it for you and kind of fill out all the columns for you. And then you can tag it, and then you could pay the bill through Ambrook. And the beauty of that is you only have to do your bookkeeping once, right? Rather than when somebody, cashes the check and then you see it pop up in your bank account and you're like, wait, what was that check for? It actually just matches it for you, which is a really useful part of paying bills through Ambrook. And since you already put those tags, both category, enterprise, entity, and funding, if applicable to you, you're able to just set it and forget it, as opposed to have to revisit the same check multiple times. So right now we have the opportunity to mail checks through Ambrook, also to pay via ACH through Ambrook. And we do have printed checks as well. Shiloh is a printed check user, which you all are welcome to ask more about. Same thing on the invoices side. You can actually bill your customers through Ambrook, and they can pay you electronically, whether that's via ACH, or they can send you a check, and you can make sure to reconcile that through Ambrook. And so all of this comes together. Oh, and by the way, the final thing that I will say is we actually have a corporate card kind of solution. So you are able to add money to your Ambrook wallet, and you can give out these cards to your staff members or the other people on your team. And the great thing about that is that you will actually get a notification on your mobile app when you or somebody else spends money, and you can snap a picture of your receipt on the spot and tag that transaction. So the ledger, the wallet, you know, sending invoices, paying your bills, all of this, the idea is like, why not do your bookkeeping while you are doing the normal workflow of business? While you're billing the customer, while you're writing the check, all of this should just happen so you don't have to scramble to figure it out afterwards. And I talked about how the enterprise P&L is a big payoff, but I do want to show you this last piece here, which are analytics for your business. And so, you know, I got a lot of feedback from our customers as we brought them on that they had never seen their business pictured like this before. And I think it's a really exciting thing about Ambrook. Every time you change a tag on the ledger, every time you change a tag on an invoice or a bill, it actually changes the statistics in your analytics. So, you know, you got information on overall cash flow. You've got information on what categories are you making money on and what categories are you spending money on. And then you've got enterprises here. And that's what makes Ambrook special, is like we consider this to be enterprise accounting to be one of the most important things you can do for your business, especially as you diversify. And so take vegetables, for instance. You can actually click into your vegetables enterprise and you can see within vegetables, because you've been so good about keeping up your tagging, oh, I'm getting most of my income from retail sales and then some of it from farmers market sales. And then on the other hand, here's how much I'm spending to make my vegetables business alive. And so that juxtaposition of the income and expense next to each other is really important. And we've found that this is a great way for people to catch their own errors. If you look at this and you say, I didn't spend $5,000 on supplies for vegetables, you can actually click and drill all the way down into your ledger to see what you tagged as supplies for vegetables. There's a lot more here. We integrate our funding library into the app as well, which gives you kind of recommendations for funding programs that you should check out. And again, you can create a tag that's associated with these to track your expenses, but I definitely want to leave at least 5-6 more minutes for additional questions. So please let me know if you have anything else that I can go over. If you have any questions about just in general the enterprise accounting piece of it, totally fine if Ambrook isn't interesting to you. I'm not here to sell you something you don't want. So yeah, I'm open to any questions that you might have. And thanks so much for your time, everyone.
Is there a set price, or do you just have to reach out for a quote?
Nope, it's a set price. It's super simple, and we keep it super simple. We don't have any like hidden fees for printing checks or, you know, sending checks via mail or ACH. The only fee that we do have is if you charge your customer and you let them pay by credit card, you have to pay the credit card fees. Our price is $100 a month. That's it. You get everything, including your onboarding, like really solid customer support. Like Shiloh mentioned, we lean into that super hard. We'll never let you go unanswered. But that's it. That's flat. There's no other like upgrades or anything that would be sold to you. Any other questions?
And is another question on pricing, because I've had an issue with QuickBooks where because we're an enterprise that spans across multiple entities, they wanted to charge separate subscription prices for each legal entity. Is that, can you do multiple entities?
Yeah, so this is we can talk about your particular situation because it kind of depends, and I'll never want to mislead you. You can do your bookkeeping, so you can do your tagging across as many business entities as you want. You can create as many entity tags and make sure that your transactions are being kind of like categorized properly. If you want to be able to move money between entities or in and out of multiple entities through Ambrook, we do price separately if you've want multiple wallets, basically, if you want to pay your bills. So if you want, we can chat after this and I can share like more details on that.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks so much for your time. I know that multi-entity is no joke. We have one customer that has 6 entities on Ambrook, and I do not envy her. Cool. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Any other questions from anybody? So just so you all know, we're here to answer your questions even afterwards. If something pops up in your head later today or tomorrow or later in the week, you can reach me at my email address. It's my first name, Maika, at ambrook.com. So I'm going to send that in the chat, and I will have Jeff send out our contact information as well, so you can reach out with additional questions. We're happy to give you another demo. Happy to just kind of like ideate with you also on what your books could look like. We're big accounting and bookkeeping nerds on this team, so we're happy to do that. All right.
Great. Thank you everybody for joining. I hope this was helpful. Micah and Shiloh, thank you guys both for your time and your presentations. I will send out a notes page with all of this stuff in writing, as well as a recording after, and I'll stitch together those parts. I'm sorry I got kicked off earlier. But yeah, thank you guys so much. And please, like Micah said, follow up if you have any questions.
Thank you all. That was great.
Thanks. Y'all have a great rest of your night. And I can leave this open, Brittany and Micah, if you guys want to talk a little bit too.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Sounds great. I'm gonna stop the recording.